Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Everyday Podcast, where we make learning English fun, simple, and practical. I'm Nicole, your host, and today we're diving into a topic that connects us all, our daily routines. This episode is packed with helpful tips and real-life examples you can use right away.
That's right, Nicole. Hey everyone, I'm Jason, your friendly co-host, and I'm thrilled to be here with you. Whether you're just starting out or you're already on your English learning journey, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Today's episode is no exception.
And guess what? You won't be learning alone. Marco, our storyteller and vocabulary expert, is here to sprinkle some magic into our episode. How's it going, Marco?
Hey guys! Hello listeners! I'm ready to share an inspiring story that will not only get you thinking, but also teach you some super useful English phrases along the way. And, of course, I'll break down the key vocabulary to make sure everything is crystal clear for you.
That sounds awesome, Marco. And to make sure you can keep track of all the new words and tips from today's episode, we've got a free PDF for you in the description. You can download it with all the key vocabulary and examples so you can practice anytime. It's a great way to make the most out of today's lesson.
Perfect. Now let's get started. Marco, what story do you have for us today?
Thanks, Jason. Listeners, before I dive into my story, I want to invite you to follow along. You can even read it out loud as you go. It's a great way to improve your speaking and reading skills while enjoying the story. Now, let me take you back to a regular Tuesday morning. It was just like any other day, and there I was, lying in bed, staring at my alarm clock. The numbers on the screen blinked back at me. 7:15 a.m. I had already hit the snooze button 2 times, and I knew I was running late. But, as usual, I convinced myself I could still make it. I'd jump out of bed, rush through the usual morning routine, grab a quick breakfast, and try to somehow get everything done. But it wasn't going well. I was already behind schedule, and that rushing feeling followed me like a shadow. My mind was filled with the list of things I had to do that day. Meetings, errands, emails, everything piled up, and my body felt heavy, weighed down by stress. It was like my morning routine was falling apart every day, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get it right. Then, as I was starting to give up on my already chaotic morning, there was a knock on my door. It was my little sister, Mia. She was holding a tiny notebook, and with a big smile, she said,
"Marco, I wrote down my routine. Wanna see?"
Curious, I sat up and took the notebook from her. What I saw was simple, but also surprisingly effective. Mia's list was clear. Wake up at 6:30, make her bed, drink water, eat breakfast, and go to school feeling happy and ready. Each task was written neatly, with little smiley faces next to them. I couldn't help but smile. At first, I laughed a little. After all, she was only 10, and her routine seemed so simple compared to the rush I always felt. But then, something clicked. Why did routines have to be complicated or stressful? Mia's routine was so basic, yet it was giving her a sense of control and peace to start her day. I decided to give it a try the very next morning. The alarm went off, and instead of hitting snooze again, I got up right away. I stretched, drank a glass of water, and took my time making breakfast. The difference was immediate. I didn't feel rushed, and for the first time in a long time, my morning felt calm and organized. Over the next few weeks, my routine became a habit. I wasn't just starting my day, I was starting it with intention. And that simple act of creating a routine had a huge impact on how productive and balanced my days became. And that's how a 10-year-old taught me the power of starting small.
Wow, what a great story, Marco. I love how something as simple as a kid's notebook can be so inspiring.
Absolutely. It just goes to show that routines aren't about perfection. They're about building habits that work for you.
Speaking of habits, Nicole, let's talk about our morning routines. What's your go-to way to start the day?
Oh, mornings are my favorite time of the day. I wake up around 6:30 a.m., stretch for a few minutes, and drink a glass of water. It's my way of easing into the day. Then I have a light breakfast, usually yogurt with fruit, and plan my schedule.
That sounds refreshing. My mornings are a bit slower. I wake up at 7, grab a cup of coffee, and sit by the window for a few minutes to collect my thoughts. After that, I have toast and eggs and make a quick to-do list for the day.
It's interesting how even small actions, like stretching or sitting quietly, can set the tone for the day.
Absolutely. All right, Marco, can you break down some vocabulary from your story and our routines?
Sure thing. Here are a few key words and phrases. Snooze button. The button you press on an alarm clock to delay waking up. For example, I hit the snooze button 3 times this morning before finally getting out of bed. Shambles. A state of total disorganization, like Marco's old mornings. For example, my desk was in shambles after working on that project all night. Easing into. Starting something slowly and gently, like how Nicole begins her day. For example, instead of rushing to finish my tasks, I'm easing into my work by tackling one thing at a time. To-do list. A list of tasks you plan to complete during the day. For example, I've got a long to-do list today, but I'm starting with the most important task first. Practice using these in sentences about your own mornings.
Thanks, Marco. These words are so practical. And listeners, share your morning routine with us too. You can write in the comments. Now let's move on to afternoons. Jason, what's your typical afternoon like?
Oh, afternoons are my power hours. I usually tackle the hardest tasks first, like preparing presentations or finishing big projects. Around 2 p.m., I take a short break to grab a snack, something light like fruit or nuts, and stretch for a bit. It helps me stay focused. What about you, Nicole?
Well, for me, afternoons are for meetings and brainstorming sessions. If I have free time, I like to go for a quick walk. It clears my head and gives me energy for the rest of the day.
That's a great idea. Short breaks really make a difference. Okay, what about vocabulary, Marco?
All right, listeners, here are 2 terms to make your afternoons productive. Power hours. The most focused and productive hours of your day. For example, I try to get my hardest work done during my power hours, which are in the morning before noon. Brainstorming. Generating ideas, often in a group. For example, our team spent the afternoon brainstorming ideas for the new marketing campaign. Use these to describe how you stay productive. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Marco. And listeners, what's your typical afternoon like? Tell us in the comments. All right, now let's wrap things up with our evening routines. Evenings are all about winding down for me. After dinner, I enjoy a cup of herbal tea and read a book. By 10 p.m., I'm in bed, ready to recharge for the next day.
Same here. After dinner, I like to listen to music or journal about my day. It's a calming way to reflect. And like you, I try to stick to a consistent bedtime around 10:30 p.m.
Oh, that's important. Reflection gives us a sense of gratitude. Okay, Marco, for the last time, can you share some evening vocabulary for our listeners?
Of course. Here's some evening vocabulary. Recharge. Regain energy even during rest. For example, taking a short walk in the evening helps me recharge after a long day. Herbal tea. A calming, caffeine-free tea often enjoyed before bed. For example, I drink a cup of chamomile herbal tea to help me relax before sleep. Reflect. To think back on your day. For example, at the end of each day, I like to reflect on what went well and what I could improve. There you go. These phrases are perfect for talking about how you relax.
Thanks, Marco. Okay, listeners, now is your turn. Tell us what your evening routine is like. And that's a wrap on today's episode. We hope you've learned something new and feel inspired to build a routine that works for you.
Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about finding small habits that make your life easier and more enjoyable.
And don't forget the vocabulary. Practice using today's episode words and phrases to describe your own day.
Thank you so much for listening to English Everyday Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a like, share with friends or family, and check our other videos. It really helps us reach more learners like you.
And if there's a topic you'd love us to cover, leave us a comment. We're here to make learning English fun and relatable.
Keep practicing, stay curious, and remember, every step brings you closer to fluency. Bye for now and happy learning.